Hey guys, I want to share a question that I hear the Lord asking his people in this hour. I've been praying, what are you doing in the nations, Lord? And it's very clear as we step back and look at the earth as a whole and what's going on in the nations. We see a lot of leaders being removed. We see leaders stepping down, and we know that there's a shift going on politically. And we look to the Lord and say, Lord, what are you doing? What are you about to do? And I heard him ask this question. And I'm going to preface before I share the question with you with two things. First, if you're watching CNN or MSNBC in this time, you need to turn it off immediately. I know most of you that watch this channel know not to have heard me say what the Lord shared, that those channels are the voice of the accuser, and the accuser of the brethren. The accuser is Satan himself, and Satan is using those media outlets as his mouthpiece in this hour. And the reason I share that is because those media outlets are sharing the exact opposite of the truth about situations and about people, the people that God is about to rise up and use in this hour, who he's anointed. CNN and MSNBC and those type of stations are speaking the exact opposite of what is true about those individuals. So that's a very dangerous place to be if you are hearing the opposite of the truth about people God is about to raise up and use. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that, because you need to be in unison with what the Spirit of God is doing, and we need to be hearing truth. So that was the first thing that I want to preface it with. I hear the Lord really pressing that. I know I've shared that before, but I hear him pressing it again. We cannot be listening to the voice of the accuser, which is coming out through those type of news media outlets. And then the other thing is that the Lord, I know I've shared this before, I will share it again. The Lord is not done with President Trump, and he's not done with many individuals that have been completely slandered and shamed by these media outlets. And that's really where this question comes from. And the Lord is asking us, do you want a David or a Saul? Do you want a Paul or a Saul? And we know with Saul and David that Saul was the one that looked like a politician, looked like a king. He fit the stature, the persona, the eloquence, everything about him was what the people wanted and expected in a king. But his heart turned evil and turned wicked and turned toward wicked things because of pride and because of the fame and all of that. He lost the favor of God and was not to continue as a leader because of his heart. But we see David, who is the exact opposite. No one would have picked him to be king. He didn't fit the bill for what a king or politician should look like. In fact, I believe people would have laughed if you would have said David should be king. He was not who people would pick, but God anointed him and picked him because of his heart. His heart was to do right and to do what is right and just before God and for the people. His heart was for the people and to see righteousness and justice reign in the nation under the authority of God. And so we need to ask ourselves, are we looking for what looks like a politician, what looks like a leader, what it's always looked like, or what we think it should look like? Or are we asking God, who are you choosing in this hour? And that's about President Trump, and that's about other leaders that the Lord is raising up to take the place of people he's removing and that are leaving in this hour. The Lord is shifting leaders, and we need to be asking the Lord, who are your Davids in this hour? And we know with President Trump, he has been so slandered and lied about that even many Christians are unknowingly maybe having strong opinions or even hatred toward President Trump because of either what's been lied or said about him or exaggerated about him in the media, or even our own people's own dislike of his personality, and that he isn't eloquent of speech and he's very brash or whatever. He doesn't fit the bill, or even taking his past and trying to use that against him. But the Lord, we look at David, and David he committed adultery, he committed murder, he made some poor choices in how he led his own children. Yet God saw his heart and picked him and didn't say you need to have a perfect past or you need to be perfect for me to choose you. So we need to make sure that we don't, in our own opinions, choose to reject those that God has anointed. And it's not just President Trump, it's other people that have been slandered or no one would pick. And they would be the last person you would think that would lead. And that's not just in politics, but also in the church and in other spheres of influence. The people God's going to pick are not going to be people that we would say, oh, that makes sense, or that's the person we would pick. It's God's pick is not going to line up with man's pick in this hour. And then we move to Paul. Do we want a Paul or a Saul? Paul means small. And we know the Apostle Paul started out as Saul, who was very learned. He was the top of the top in the Jewish tradition. Everyone looked up to him and thought that he was the perfect leader and teacher because he had it all. He knew it all. And yet God used Paul, who on the road to Damascus came to the truth, to true knowledge of everything. And the Lord redeemed his life and used him, but used him in his smallness. When he preached the gospel, he did not have eloquence of speech. He did not have anything to stand on except the power of God and the truth, which many people did not want to hear. Paul spoke the truth even amongst the churches that he planted and was very direct and spoke truth. And it wasn't his, people pleasing or that he had this great personality or looked great. No, he said, I am the least of the least, and yet God has chosen me to preach the gospel into all the earth so that God would get the glory. So we need to look for who God is choosing in this hour, not based off of does he look like a Saul or have the credentials of a Saul, or be looking for who God is choosing with the heart of David, with the righteous, pure devotion of Paul, and be okay with who God picks and not be against and rejecting the ones God picks in this hour. So the Lord asks us, do you want a David or a Saul? Do you want a Paul or a Saul? And our answer should be, Lord, whoever you pick, we will pray for, we will cheer on, and we will stand up in agreement with, because we know your ways are higher. So I just want to bless you with that word and encourage you to stay in the secret place and ask the Lord what he's doing and who he's picking and get behind them.